What started it all happened in early 2019 when the first mutilated dead whale washed up on shore. The phenomenon was not very uncommon. The occasional dead whale would wash up on shore once in a while. But the whale carcass, or what was left of the carcass, that washed up in 2019 was different and much more disturbing. The whale was huge. A humpback whale, but that was just one of the species that the scientists suggested it could have been. On a sunny evening in the middle of July, I was walking down the shore when I stumbled upon the carcass. It was massive, but you want to know the disturbing part? Only the lower half of the whale washed up on shore. Only the tail and back fins flimsily hang on to the gruesome lower half of the body. The entire lower half of the body was scarred and wounded. Only the pale colors of the carcass allowed me to identify the creature as a whale. It looked as if something had taken a huge bite out of the whale. For starters, a huge section of the carcass was ripped out. Gigantic scratch marks covered the rotting skin of the whale. After discovering the whale, I took a picture of it and called 911. They came, covered the carcass with a tarp, and sent it to some researchers over in Washington. And oh boy, that was only the beginning. A local fisherman, whose name was Travis, was on his boat, fishing for tuna offshore. He recalls that while he was reeling in a huge yellowtail tuna fish, he spotted something moving beneath the surface of the water. At first, it looked like a shark fin, but the shark's fin was black, and it was ridged and bony. And that was when Travis realized that the shark fin wasn't a shark fin, it was a spike. At the same moment, Travis looked down at the water, and all he saw was darkness. Not darkness, as in the water had turned black. Darkness, as in something in the water was blocking the sunlight from entering the water. Something huge, absolutely enormous, was swimming under Travis's boat. Travis said that the previously thought shark fin immediately disappeared underwater, and after a few seconds, the shark fin spike reappeared along with hundreds of other spiked fins, all moving in alignment. The thing under Travis's boat looked to be 900 meters long. It stretched out into the distance. He couldn't see the head or the tail of the creature. The previously thought shark fins looked to be attached to whatever was moving under his boat, moving along with the creature beneath the boat. After 5 terrifying minutes, the tail of the creature could be seen from a distance, and it was, based on Travis's account, terrifying. The tail alone looked to be around 100 meters long. It was ridged and bony, prehistoric looking and algae covered. Travis stayed on his boat until the creature left. He drove back to shore, and the only time he told anyone was when he was extremely drunk at a bar. A few days later, 5 more mangled and attacked whale corpses washed up on shore. This, however, was not dismissed or taken so easily by the community. The dead whales attracted huge crowds, and eventually the town council was pressured into digging deeper and finding answers. Eventually, the police and community cleanup crew arrived at the scene. Due to the carcass's enormous size, they had to be destroyed with explosive devices and chainsaws. Not too pleasant, if you ask me. The beach was completely red for a few weeks. Over a few weeks after that, deep-sea fishermen and sailors reported seeing an enormous shape beneath the water, so huge and massive that they couldn't see the end of it. More horribly mangled dead whales, and sometimes even great white sharks, kept washing up onto the shore again, and more people saw the enormous and unknown creature far offshore. And as stupid and cliche as it sounds, more and more people wanted answers. And being the stupid rednecks they are, they wouldn't give up. The community pressured the city council to send a submersible down into the ocean to investigate. And after a month, when, strangely, there was no more strange activity, that's what they did. The city council hired a team that could operate a submersible, and they sent them down in the general direction of where the creature was last seen. Most people expected the submersible and its crew to discover some giant and undiscovered creature, and they were only half wrong. They did discover the creature. It lay at the bottom of the seafloor, revealing its true enormity. The crew of the submersible said that the creature looked like a 900-meter-long mosasaur, but the creature's skin was plated with black scales, covering its entire body. Its tail was exactly how Travis described it, bony and ridged. Fin-like spikes lined the top surface of the tail, but they couldn't completely confirm if the creature was a giant mosasaur because it had no head. Something else had killed the giant creature. Something much, much bigger. I feel like I should say the bulk of this town's population is made up of saltwater fishermen and recreational hunters. So both those activities are huge factors in this town's economy. Cryptozoology is also a big factor here. This town is where the world likes to dump its weird shit. Ake, the town equivalent of Skinwalker Ranch. Lots of weird stuff goes on around here. UFO sightings, unknown creature attacks, demon summoning rituals, unexplained disappearances. You name it all. If almost all the population didn't own guns, we would all be dead by now. However, there is one slight aspect that sets this town apart from others. There is an abundance of strange agents who belong to a vague organization. Other than that, it's your run-of-the-mill small town on the shoreline. If I forgot to mention I'm a marine biologist, I'll say it now. I'm a marine biologist, and my career is one of the reasons I decided to move to my seaside town. By the way, my name is Roger Rogers. It's a weird name, I know. The job isn't as exciting as I imagined. I didn't always go into submersibles to explore the deep blue sea. My job mainly consisted of staring at some dead fish for a couple of hours and then writing some study notes. And since I was a marine biologist, I decided to go look and investigate the matter of the dead Leviathan. The local government covered up the findings by saying the submersible team discovered an extremely rare communal pack of great white sharks, which was total bullshit, and that they were responsible for all the dead whales. Eventually, I found a guy with a submersible to take me to the location. So the plan was to go to the location of the dead creature, examine it, and assume what beast could have killed the mosasaur-like creature that lay dead in the murky depths of the inhospitable ocean it once called home. So on one Friday afternoon, I found myself boarding a 3-person submersible along with my driver, Benjamin. Ben, if you're lazy. Ben was skinny and short, had curly brown hair, and had light skin. After adjusting to the cramped space the submersible offered, I sat down and introduced myself to Ben, for I did not know his name at the time. "Hey, my name's Roger," Ben smiled. "Hey, Roger, I'm Ben. This is my submarine. Isn't she beautiful?" He shook my hand. "Nice to meet you." "Same." "Ready to go see the Leviathan?" I asked. "Is that what you call it?" "Yeah, it was the best I could think of. Actually, it's a pretty shitty name." He chuckled. "Okay, let's go." Ben flipped several switches, pulled a black lever, and did some other stuff I couldn't recognize. And the submersible slowly descended into the blue water, the light slowly disappearing as we went deeper. I feel I should say that the feeling of going underwater, even in the safety of a submarine, is amazing. The feeling is mesmerizing. It's as if you've entered a portal to a whole new world in a completely different environment. Dozens of tiny fish darted away from the submersible's porthole as larger animals, like sharks, came into view. "Wow," I said. "That's big." "I know, right? This is the second time I've seen it." "The second time?" "Yeah. I was there when they discovered this thing." "Wow." "So, what do we do now?" I asked. "I don't know. I'm just the driver. You're the guy who knows all that science shit, right?" I nodded. "Let's get started. Can you move the submarine at an angle where I can see the sliced neck?" Already on it, the submersible turned and moved a little to the left, and I could see the stump where the creature's head had once been. It was a clean cut. There was not much gore. Most of the blood and guts were being swarmed by hungry scavengers and sharks. A true feeding frenzy. From what I could tell, the animal that killed the Leviathan must have been territorial, not hungry, since not much of the mosasaur-like creature was eaten, only the head. And judging from the circular and aligned marks and wounds on the skin of the Leviathan's carcass, The animal that killed the Leviathan must have been territorial, not hungry, since not much of the mosasaur-like creature was eaten, only the head. And judging from the circular and aligned marks on the skin of the Leviathan's carcass, the animal that killed the Leviathan must have had tentacles. That put an immediate thought into my head. Squid. A huge, oversized monster squid must have killed the Leviathan. Of course, this theory was not a very reliable one, but it was still the best I could come up with. But something didn't add up. The Leviathan had bite marks engraved into its skin. Huge, deep bite marks. Squid, octopus, and any kind of cephalopod had beaks, but they didn't have mouths or teeth. So what had hooked tentacles and razor-sharp, flesh-ripping teeth? Nothing. At least nothing scientifically. Ben waved his hand in front of my face and grinned. "Hey, Roger, you zoned out for a bit." I shook my head. No. I was just thinking. Whatever did this was territorial. It killed the Leviathan because it was in its territory, not because of hunger. And whatever killed the Leviathan had hooked tentacles. So we're in the territory of a giant, mosasaur-eating squid. Ben asked. "I'm not sure if the creature that killed the Leviathan is a squid or an octopus," I replied. There were bite marks on the Leviathan's skin. Squids don't have teeth. Squids don't have teeth. Squids and other cephalopods have beaks, but not giant mouths filled with razor-sharp teeth. Okay, I did not understand any of that. "Can you collect a skin sample of the Leviathan?" I asked. "Already on it." Ben moved the submersible closer to the Leviathan's carcass as a few curious sharks stared at us as they swam by. Ben pushed a button, and a robotic deep-sea arm protruded from the submersible, and it ripped a piece of slimy black skin off of the Leviathan. The arm retracted back into the submarine, and soon a piece of moist skin came out of a small tube in a plastic canister. "Cool shit," I whispered as I picked the canister up. I chuckled to myself, stuffing the canister into a plastic bag. I took a few notes, collected some blood and DNA samples, and we headed back to the seaside docks. Somewhere around 6 p.m., I walked back to my cozy cabin-like house, not a mile away from the shore, and about 10 minutes away from the convenience store on the side of the road. Before I tell you any more about my findings, I think I should tell you more about my town. My town is located somewhere in Oregon, but that's about all the location information I'll reveal. My town is something that you would call a stereotypical small town. Most of the town's economy comes from fishing and tourism. Despite our secluded location, lots of tourists come for fishing experiences or to enjoy our sandy beaches. The townsfolk, all of them, are different. You can meet a straight-up asshole, then turn around and meet a bigger asshole who also shits down his pants leg and rubs it on you. I had taken one of the skin samples back with me, and I analyzed them with the microscope I so conveniently had. With my marine biology degree, I found out two things. The Leviathan's skin was aged, indicating that the creature itself was aged. Based on how old the Leviathan's skin was, the creature was probably over 1,000 years old. The Leviathan must be the only remaining and now dead specimen of a mosasaur superspecies that evolved very quickly in the Precambrian period and somehow slipped under the fossil radar. Yeah, that makes more sense. And the unknown species, the Leviathan, must have also evolved to live extremely long and be resistant to world-ending catastrophes and below-freezing temperatures. But where would a giant 900-meter-long creature hide? Unseen. Surely it would have been easily spotted by a satellite by now. Maybe, just maybe, there's an undiscovered section. There was a knock at my front door. I walked over to my front door and opened it, only to see Kyle Wilson. A guy who towered over me looked at me, grinned a stupid grin, and swung a baseball bat at my face, knocking me out cold. The last thing I saw was Kyle dropping the bat in front of my door and dragging me outside. Okay, for starters, Kyle, to put it extremely, so ever nicely is an asshole. We were in the same school from kindergarten up to high school. He was notorious for starting fights and ending fights, but to my knowledge, he didn't kill anyone. Yet, the first time I saw Kyle was at the beginning of high school, and unlike the other kids, Kyle was standing in the middle of the field, randomly punching anyone who looked at him the wrong way. I went up to him and told him to stop being such an asshole, and he, having an explosive rage, punched me and tried to strangle me to death. The aftermath was less than what people would normally call fair. The principal wanted to expel Kyle, but Kyle's dad threatened to sue the school, and all of a sudden, poof, just like that, like magic. My high school's zero-tolerance fighting policy was gone. As you can imagine, Kyle hated me after the fight. I tried to avoid him, but fights eventually became inevitable. Kyle went out of his way to make my life miserable, pushing me down the stairs, chasing after me after school, and trying to punch me every chance he got. I didn't know why, but the guy just hated me. One day, I decided I had enough, and I snuck up on Kyle and punched him in the back. Or at least I tried to punch Kyle. I somehow missed by a long shot, and Kyle easily caught my fist. I'd like to leave out the details of what happened after he caught my fist. He broke my wrist and broke my goddamn nose, but I only realized that after the pain had come back. But to my surprise, I was expelled for starting the fight and provoking Kyle. I moved to another school, and I thought that was the end of it. It wasn't that Kyle stalked me after school ended. He beat my ass up whenever there weren't any whizzes. Eventually, I graduated, moved out of town, got a degree in marine biology, and moved to the seaside town I live in today. In my unconscious state, Kyle laughed out loud and carried me to his car, where he tied me up, kicked me a couple of times, and threw me into his car's trunk. Keep in mind that it was pretty dark outside at this point, so there was no one to witness the whole ordeal. I woke up about an hour later, my head throbbing, and it took a while before I realized I was tied up in the trunk of my old high school enemy's car. Panic started to rise in my chest, and I felt the start of an adrenaline rush. How had Kyle found me? I lived 600 miles from my old hometown. And most importantly, what did he want from me? Focusing on escaping, I looked around for that glowing escape switch most cars had inside their trunks. Even if I did find the switch, my hands were tied up. It turns out there was no switch. Kyle had ripped it out. Then the car stopped. That was when I started to panic. From the darkness of Kyle's car, I thrashed and kicked, trying to get free of the ropes that were holding me down. I heard the driver's door open, followed by footsteps coming to the trunk I was in. Kyle opened the trunk and said, "Walkie, get up." I couldn't get up. So Kyle did the next best thing, and he picked me up and Sparta kicked me into the middle of the dirt road he had parked on. He punched me and beat me in every way possible, the wicked smile never leaving his face. Kyle kicked me again, and I winced in pain. "Tell me, when was the last time I saw you?" he said, pulling out a pistol and aiming it at my face. My heart sank as he pulled back the hammer, but just to spite him, I flashed a cheesy grin. "A couple of years ago. Damn, you got fuck ugly. Now give me the skin samples you extracted from the dead creature at the bottom of the sea, or the police are going to find another body on the side of the road." I froze. "What?" "You know, I saw you come up to the surface with those samples. I know everything. I know about the dead whales, about the giant dead creature lying at the bottom of the seafloor. I know everything. You fucking creep. How? How'd you even find me? I have my sources." "Okay, that's sketchy as hell." "Well, you know the skin samples were at my house, right? They were right there at my living room table." "You're lying," Kyle's saying. God, I hated him. "I'm not lying," I yelled. Out of nowhere, at the most convenient time imaginable in the history of the most convenient times imaginable, a black pickup truck passed by us, and the truck stopped, and a man with curly black hair wearing a brown trench coat, black jeans, and a baseball cap walked out of the truck, glaring at Kyle. "Hey, what the hell are you dipshits doing? You can't park in the middle of the fucking road." I could tell even Kyle was intimidated by this guy. Yet he maintained composure. He laughed, shook his head, and waved his arms around. "Whatcha going to do about it?" And without any hesitation, he walked up to the man, put his gun directly on his forehead, and fired. Well, Kyle did shoot, but somehow he missed the man because he decided to do something about it. The very last second before Kyle fired, the man who towered over Kyle ducked and grabbed the barrel of the gun and pointed it sideways, just as Kyle pulled the trigger. And he twisted his wrist and flipped Kyle using some badass jiu-jitsu technique, causing him to scream in pain. I had to say that after over a decade of being tortured by this guy, it was very satisfying to hear him scream in pain for once. The gunshot echoed in my ears, making them ring. The man punched Kyle several times and beat the absolute crap out of him. Kyle eventually escaped and ran into the woods, yelling about how he would get his fucking revenge. Hey, can you cut these ropes?" I said. "Sure," said the man, as he whipped out an enormous hunting knife and sliced through the thick ropes like they were hot butter. Laughing nervously, I stood up, checked myself for injuries, and thanked the man. "Thanks. By the way, that guy was some asshole from school." "Yeah, I could tell," said the man. "You're welcome. My name's Zach." I vaguely recognized the name. Zach was one of the monster hunters who lived in a cabin in the middle of the woods, in the middle of absolutely nowhere. I found out about him from small town gossip, and it's a damn small town, so I met him once at a local supermarket a while back. We didn't talk. I just waited behind him in the checkout line while he paid for his groceries. The monster hunters were a group of people who claimed that they hunted Wendigo, goatmen, tall deer, crawlers, sea monsters, and other bullshit. "Oh, you're one of the monster hunters." Zach raised an eyebrow. And, well, that's pretty weird if I'm being honest. Zach ignored my comment and asked, "What's your name?" "Oh, my name's Roger." "Well, nice to meet you, dickhead." "What?" "That's not my name." "Never mind. By the way," I said, "can you give me a ride home? I don't live far from here, and I just got my ass kicked." "Sure. Hop in my truck." Although I wasn't thrilled to go ride in some random stranger's pickup truck. This random stranger had just beat the shite out of the guy who had tormented me for years. Zach dropped me off at my house after about an hour. I checked myself for injuries, and luckily I only had a couple of bruises on my ribs, some cuts, and a huge bump on my forehead. After cleaning myself up in my bathroom, I went straight to bed, allowing myself some time to heal before going back to my research. I woke up at 4 in the morning after I heard someone calling me on my phone. I picked my phone up, accepted the call, and said, "Hello." "Hey, Roger, I thought you died or something." It was from Ben. I sighed. "Hey, Ben, no, I didn't die. I just got kidnapped by Kyle." "Who's Kai?" "He's a sociopath who bullied me in high school." "Oh," he said. "That's cool. Are you okay?" "Yeah, thanks for asking." "Thanks for asking." "I know, but I need to get straight to the point. I know it's 4 in the morning right now, and I know you're tired as hell, but I've been calling you for 6 hours straight since 6 o'clock, and you haven't been picking up. 6 hours. How long have I been unconscious?" "Oh, well, why did you want to call me?" "That's what I was going to tell you about," Ben said. "I was exploring the site of the Leviathan's carcass, and I found something strange. I went a little further out into the sea, and I found a dead colossal squid laying on the bottom of the seafloor. It was huge, maybe 40 feet long. Colossal squids are very rare, so this was my first time seeing one. Anyway, the squid was huge, but like all the whales that had washed up on shore, it had a huge chunk of flesh taken out of it. I sighed for the second time. Ben said, "Almost all the tentacles of the squid were gone, and save for a couple of chunks of flesh. Almost everything was eaten." "And?" I asked. "It means the giant mystery monster is out and about. I found the carcass a dozen miles from shore, so that means the mystery monster thingy lives pretty deep. The mystery monster was probably closer to shore, when it killed the Leviathan. And the Leviathan's carcass was pretty old, but the squid carcass wasn't. Oh, well, I'm happy to discuss all this giant Leviathan-killing monster business later. I just got beat half to death by a psychopath last night, and I'd like to go back to sleep. Ben hung up. I placed my phone on my bedside table, and I immediately went back to sleep, forgetting about the short, tiring conversation I just had with the closest resemblance I had to a friend. The next day, I found myself yet again sitting in Ben's submersible, heading to the colossal squid's carcass. Or at least we were trying to. It turns out that the ocean is much bigger than you'd see on Google Maps. As we headed farther out to sea and descended deeper, light gradually started to disappear, until there was no trace of it at all. And we are here. Actually, we're not here, said Ben. It'll take an hour to find the carcass. Plenty of air and plenty of time. Wait, never mind. There's the carcass. The submersible stopped at the edge of a deep trench, and there lay the enormous carcass of a freshly killed colossal squid. Wow, I breathed. That is big. The carcass was huge, bigger than the submersible. But since something had taken a huge bite out of it, it was hard to tell its true size. And as for how I was feeling, I wasn't fazed by the enormous squid carcass. In fact, after seeing the Leviathan's decapitated body, I was certain that nothing could faze me anymore. I was wrong about that. Yep, said Ben. And what a coincidence that this squid's carcass is right on the edge of a trench, one that possibly no one has explored yet. So, what are you trying to say? I'm trying to say that this trench could again possibly be the home or territory, the creature that killed the Leviathan. Wait, just a second. I'm tired of calling the thing that killed the Leviathan the creature. What about the deep one? Benjamin smiled. Yeah, that's great and catchy. Despite the obvious Lovecraftian creatures that also have the same name. So, I asked, do you want to go into that trench? Ben started laughing his dumbass off. Are you a dumbass? If there's a giant sea monster down there, which has to be at least over a mile in size, running around, eating giant mosasaurs and squid? Would you want to go? No. Yup. We don't want to die. Now that I think about it, I don't think the deep one would even notice us. So what are we going to do now? Take a couple of skin samples from the squid, because they're very rare. And look for anything interesting, I replied. An hour later, back on the surface, I found myself at the local convenience store, which I may or may not have mentioned earlier. It's been there for a couple of decades, and the old building itself was held together by some duct tape, prayers, and nothing else. The guy who owns it is this nice old man everyone calls Earl. He was a tough guy in his 60s, and he was ex-military, like almost everyone in the entire town. He had graying sideburns and a mustache. To put it simply, he looked like Michael Gross. Despite being the nicest man anyone in this town knew, he was still a redneck. Because he was a crazy gun enthusiast, country music lover, and former truck driver, and he had a shitload of guns. Hey Earl, I said, walking into the store. Sup, bro, he replied, petting a pistol for some reason. I reached over the counter and grabbed a bag of chips and 5 bowls of ramen. Will that be all? Earl asked. Yeah. I pulled out a $20 bill, and that's when I realized that it wasn't enough to pay for all of the food. Hey, Earl? Yeah, I don't have enough money. It's all right. It's on the house tonight. My eyes lit up. Really? All of it? Yeah. Also because the ROM expired 2 years ago. And one more question. Yeah, I asked. What's the deal with you and some other dude going in a submarine every day? Y'all doing something? That caught me off guard. Yes, but no. That sounds suspicious. Yeah, I know. Yup. Okay, see you later, Earl, I said, leaving the store. Later,